Services, dial 311.
Hello, I'm Buildings Commissioner Rick Chandler. Construction safety is our top priority to protect both workers and the public. Starting this spring, most construction workers will need to have approved safety training or they will not be able to work. For more information, please visit nyc.gov/DOB. Working together, we will build our city safely. Thank you.
I'm Carmelyn P. Morales, Commissioner and Chair of the New York City Commission on Human Rights. It's difficult to overstate the challenges facing so many New Yorkers in this current political climate. That's why we, at the Commission on Human Rights, have increased our outreach efforts to let everyone in New York City know that discrimination and harassment are unacceptable and illegal in our city. To report it, call us at 718-722-3131 or visit us at nyc.gov/humanrights.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311 or visit nyc.gov.
I'm Donna Corrado, Commissioner of the New York City Department for the Aging. As people age, they often face a shrinking circle of family, friends, and social life, which leads to isolation and loneliness. But it doesn't have to be that way. A commitment of an hour a week as a friendly visitor makes a world of difference. To volunteer your time or to connect with a friendly visitor, call 311. A meaningful friendship can begin with a simple phone call.
The Taxi and Limousine Commission's Accessible Dispatch Program now offers citywide service. Order a yellow or green wheelchair accessible taxi on demand or in advance at no extra cost. Download the Accessible Dispatch app, book at accessibleddispatch.com or call 646-599-9999. For New York Relay, dial 711. Now you can access the city like never before.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311.
This is City Controller Scott Stringer. Your credit score isn't just a number. It's the key to financial freedom. That's why we have a proposal to add rent payments into credit reporting. Making rent count could mean lower bills, cheaper borrowing rates, and higher scores for New Yorkers. To learn more about how to get rent added to your credit score, visit controller.nyc.gov and search for Making Rent Count.
Si trabajas en una empresa u organización sin fines de lucro, tienes derecho a ausencia laboral debido a seguridad o enfermedad. Puedes utilizarla para mantener tu seguridad en caso de violencia doméstica, contacto sexual no deseado, acoso o tráfico de personas. O puedes utilizarla para asuntos de salud. Llama al 311 o visita nyc.gov/DCA para obtener más información o para presentar una queja.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311 or visit nyc.gov.
The Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities now has a direct video conferencing line for people who are deaf or hard of hearing, ASL Direct. ASL Direct connects users to an information specialist fluent in ASL that can provide information about New York City services. If you have a friend, family member, or neighbor who is deaf or hard of hearing, let them know about ASL Direct. Help us spread the word. For more information or to get connected to New York City government, visit nyc.gov/ASL. That's nyc.gov/ASL.
They do the work few ever see and fight for kids and families most of us never hear about. They're the ones who answer the call for help when a loving mom can't afford food, when addiction, domestic violence, or mental health issues turn a family upside down, even when new parents need a crib so their newborn can sleep safe. When our city's kids and families need help, Child Protective Specialists are there. Learn more about Child Protective Specialists at nyc.gov/CPS.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311.
I'm Victor Calisi, Commissioner of the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. Traveling around the city can become a challenge when drivers fail to follow basic parking rules. Parking spaces designated for people with disabilities ensure equal access to goods and services. Parking without a permit in a designated space or using a fake permit is illegal. For more information, dial 311.
Hi, I'm DCAS Commissioner Lisette Camilo. The Department of Citywide Administrative Services is an instrumental part of New York City government. We're comprised of more than 2,000 employees who work in personnel management, engineering, procurement, real estate, custodial services, and more. We're on a mission to be customer-focused, service-driven. To find out more about what DCAS does and who we are, visit nyc.gov/DCAS.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311 or visit nyc.gov.
I'm Commissioner Greg Bishop of the New York City Department of Small Business Services. Do you need help signing, renewing, or resolving some other issue with a business lease in New York City? You may be eligible for free legal services. For more information, call 311 and ask for commercial lease assistance or visit nyc.gov/SBS. That's nyc.gov/SBS.
I'm Donna Corrado, Commissioner of the New York City Department for the Aging. Any person age 60 and older can avail themselves of a myriad of senior centers located throughout the 5 boroughs. Senior centers foster friendships, offer fitness and wellness classes, hot, nutritious meals, and other fun activities. Members can also get assistance applying for entitlements and benefits. Go see for yourself. Call 311 to get the location of a center near you.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311.
This is New York City Comptroller Scott Stringer. As New Yorkers, we know that diversity makes us stronger. The truth is, immigrants help power our city's economy. They earn $100 billion in income, pay billions in taxes, and own more than 83,000 small businesses. We all have a responsibility to stand up and protect our neighbors, and that starts with being informed. To read my report on how immigrants contribute to New York's economy, visit comptroller.nyc.gov.
Thank you, NYC! 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 Give me driver power! Union power! Driver power! Union power! Driver power! Union power! Driver power! Union power!
All right, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for all you've done. Thank you so much, everybody. Well, I'd be proud of you. Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Thank you. Congratulations, everybody. Yeah. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Excellent. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank City Council members. Thank all our drivers to be here. My name is Burima Nyambele. I'm a cab driver and leader in the African community. I live in the Bronx since I moved here from Mali 22 years ago. I had been working as a driver in the city since 2006. When I started driving a yellow cab, new job any immigrant could get in New York City that will support a family. I have 4 kids, and I brought food home every night. And I was proud every day to drive the cab. But in the last 12 years, I have seen a lot of change. I have drive yellow, drive a black car. I have been in from all this side. What I know is these years after years, everyone is working hard and make less. That is hard to watch. My first year driving, I lived comfortably, paid my rent, and took care of my bill. Working the same job these years is a whole another story. This used to be a job you could actually live on. Now everyone I know work 2 or 3 jobs. More and more we are driving around empty. Every minute that you drive around like that, you pay and make no money. Drive across the industry, I felt so alone. For the first time in a long time, we have hope. Yes. Thanks to you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks to the Speaker. And thanks to all New York City Council members.
Driver power! Union power! Driver power!
Union power!
Driver power!
Union power!
Driver power! Driver power!
Thank you. This means more of them we could know to happen again. Now, I have a pleasure, I have an honor to present to you today one of the icons of New York City who have been fighting all his life for people right, equal right, immigrant right, women right. You could name it. It's not because today he's the mayor of the city of New York. I have been known this mayor almost 12 or 13 years ago when he was city council. The same fight he do that time, that's the same fight he take to City Hall. We want to thank you, thank the city council leadership, yes. And thank each and every community member and taxi driver and union member who are coming here to support this effort. Yes. I want you, each and every one of you, to give big hand to our mayor, the mayor of the best city in the planet, Blasio, the mayor of New York City. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Great job. Yes, sir. Everybody, this is a beautiful day in every way. It is a day of victory. How sweet it is, everybody. How sweet it is. And this is a victory for everybody here, every hard-working driver, everyone who went out and unionized and organized and talked to people and mobilized people. This is a victory for the people. So give your neighbor a round of applause right now. To Burima for his passion, for his leadership. This is an example of someone who knows how to fight and win. Let's thank him for all he has done. 3 years ago, we took a stand against corporate greed. But corporate greed won the day then. Well, this time the people won.
Yes!
This time, the drivers won.
Yes!
It didn't matter. Up against a huge multinational corporation, it proved once again, power resides in the people. Yes! You proved it. This city council deserves such respect and appreciation for the leadership they have shown.
Thank you, Corey.
And you're going to hear from Speaker Johnson, you're going to hear from Councilmember Levin. I want to say a thanks to all council members, but to them, these two in particular. It is not easy to stare down Goliath, but they never wavered. Let's give them a big warm round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a day of victory. A day of victory for the Taxi Workers Alliance. This is a day of victory for an organization that begins with the number 32.
BJ!
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. 32?
BJ!
This is a victory for you as well. I want to thank everyone who's here, all the elected officials, all the council members in particular, everyone who's been a part of this fight. I want to thank from my administration, someone who you're gonna hear from Mira in a moment, but I want to also thank someone who was right in the middle of this in such an important way. Our Commissioner for the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, Victor Calisi. Thank you for your leadership. And today we celebrate, but we also know there's been some tragedies. Tragedies that deeply moved the people of the city, that everyone felt very personally. And one of the families is here. I want to thank Richard Chow and his whole family for being with us, for their strength, for their leadership. This is your victory, and this is a reminder. We will not forget Kenny, and this is a way to honor Kenny's memory. Let's thank the Chow family. Let's be very blunt about what's happened in the city. It's the greatest city in the world, that's true. Yep. But for 5 years, app-based cars have flooded our streets, unchecked. And it was based on a very cynical corporate plan to oversaturate, to purposefully flood the market, to purposefully dominate, regardless of the consequences. Here is a fact that 40% of app-based cars drive around empty today at any given moment. 40% empty. Yep. Horrendous for the drivers. Horrendous for our environment. A horrible element of congestion, all because of a corporate and greedy strategy. And what has it meant for the people who do the work? For the taxi drivers, for the for-hire vehicle drivers, it has meant their livelihoods are being steadily destroyed. People who once expected a good income and a pathway to middle class, now forced to live on poverty wages. You know, you're talking about, and I don't need to convince anyone here, drivers who can work not just 5 days, not just 6 days, but 7 days a week in too many cases, no break. But what did we learn from the University of California study? 85% of for-hire vehicle drivers living on poverty wages now because of what these companies did to them. I don't have to tell you that meanwhile someone's laughing all the way to the bank. The corporate leadership, the shareholders of Uber in particular, pocketing billions on the backs of working people. That was true until yesterday. But it won't be true anymore in New York City. Because the people have spoken. By the way, a lot of everyday people have said to me, they are sick of corporate exploitation and they're sick of congested streets. And they see in one fell swoop this city council attacked both these problems at once in a decisive manner. It also is going to send a message around the world that cities can fight back. Yes, sir. And that we will fight back. Yes. And it sends a message about the resolve of New York City. No big corporation will tell us what to do. Not big oil, not the big pharmaceutical companies, and certainly not Uber. Yes. They don't get to set the rules. Yes. This is first in the nation legislation. Yes. The council did its job. I will do my job on Tuesday when I look forward to signing this legislation, making it law. And 100,000 workers and their families will start to benefit immediately. New licenses capped for a year, with the obvious exception of accessible vehicles, and we need more of those. And by October, a new minimum compensation rule, the thing we've needed for so long. Let's guarantee that drivers get a decent income. You will hear what our opponents are already preparing to say. You're going to hear it now, you'll hear it time and again. They say because of this action, there'll be less service for consumers and there'll be transit deserts, and they will paint a bleak picture.
Not true.
And it's not only not true, my friend, they're lying. Yes! They are lying. Yes! There are plenty of vehicles. Yes. Now, finally, those vehicles will have plenty of work and better wages. That's the whole idea. Yep. I'll finish with this. If you talk to everyday New Yorkers, you'll learn one thing very quickly. Doesn't matter if you're low income, working class, middle class, most New Yorkers are struggling to make ends meet. No, that's right. Most New Yorkers in the greatest city in the world are struggling to make ends meet. It is our job every single day to help relieve them of that burden, to help make it easier to live in this city. What this city council did yesterday took 100,000 people who were struggling just to survive and gave them a pathway to a good life. And I say, God bless you to all the members of the City Council. Yes, sir. Thank you. And this is a big step towards the goal of these 4 years ahead, to make this the fairest big city in America, a place where people get treated decently. And a hard day's work equals a good day's pay. Amen? Yes. I'm going to do a few words in Spanish now. I must say, for this industry, I could do 100 different languages, and I wouldn't be done. And I wouldn't be done. But I'll just do one. Empresas como Uber están inundando nuestra ciudad con autos y empujando a los conductores hacia la pobreza. Antes, los choferes podían mantener a sus familias, pero ahora su futuro es incierto. Con esta ley, estamos luchando por un salario digno, por menos congestión en nuestras calles y por una ciudad más justa. A fairer city and a better city for all. And at this point, someone who deserves just the greatest credit, because I've watched for years and years and years, and I know when you're Speaker of the City Council, a whole lot of pressure comes your way, a whole lot of different interest groups make their views known. Some of them like to even threaten, but they don't know Corey Johnson. He knows how to stand up for working people. And he said he was going to do it. And guess what, brothers and sisters? He did it. Yeah! Our Speaker, Corey Johnson. Yeah! Thank you. Well done, brothers. Thank you, Corey Johnson. Thank you, NYC. Thank you, NYC.
Thank you, Corey.
It's okay. It's hot out here today, and it was hot yesterday at the City Council. We took a very big step towards creating a fair and equitable framework for overseeing the for-hire vehicle industry in our city. And yesterday was a culmination of a lot of people's hard work. I want to thank Mayor de Blasio for his partnership in getting this done. I want to thank his administration, and specifically, I want to thank a real partner, someone who has been a fair and honest broker that was data-driven throughout the process. The commissioner from the TLC, I want to thank Mira Joshi for her incredible work. I want to thank Hector Figueroa from 32 and Bedi Desai from the New York Taxi Workers Alliance for fighting for working people and immigrants in New York City. I want to thank the members of the city who has been a long-time champion on these issues. Councilmember Lander is not here today, but he was instrumental in this package, as well as Chair Ruben Diaz Sr., who had bills. And I especially want to thank someone who has been at this fight for multiple years now, who has been very thoughtful in his approach, and I think was really ahead of the curve on understanding the issue and has taken a lot of heat for it, actually. I want to thank my dear, dear friend, Councilmember Steve Levin, for his leadership as well. When we took on this issue, our intention was to take a common sense, data-driven approach to a situation that led to congestion on our streets and drivers struggling to survive and an industry that has been changing too quickly for many to keep up with. We wanted to address the fact that 2,000 new for-hire cars were being added to our streets every single month, and the city lacked the framework in place to really process that and what that meant. So that's why I felt the New York City Council should examine this issue and take action. But as I stepped into it as a new speaker of the council, I also learned more about the people involved in this industry and their struggles. I've heard firsthand the stories of the people who drive taxi cabs and black cars and their family stories. I have the chills talking about it. And I have been deeply, deeply moved by these stories. I've learned in harrowing detail about how much they've suffered and how much these bills mean to them and the future of their lives. So I spoke to Gabriel Ochisor, whose father, Nicanor, took his own life after struggling financially to make a living as a cabbie. And Gabriel was still trying to process what happened to his father and how his family was still struggling to make ends meet in the aftermath. Yesterday at City Hall, I briefly got to meet, came to City Hall for a vote as well. One of them flew from Florida to be here yesterday for the vote. Their brother Doug was a driver who committed suicide at the East Gate of City Hall in February. Paul and George, again, came all the way from Florida to be in this city on the day of the vote, and they did it in honor of their brother and his life. So I started this in hopes of a data-driven, common sense approach, common sense solution to a problem that I think a lot of people could see was happening in the city. But the human side of this was never lost on me. This is not just about statistics, the explosive growth of over 100,000 new licenses. It's not just about the annoyance of congestion in New York City. It's not just about hearing about the percentage of people who are struggling to make ends meet. It's about the human lives that are touched throughout this. Again, in total, New York City lost 6 drivers because of turmoil in an industry we all use and we all know. Every single New Yorker uses this industry. Their names, again, the 6 people who lost their lives: Abdul Saleh, Kenny Chow, Nicanor Ochisor, Douglas Shifter, Danilo Castillo, and Alfredo Perez. I want to say to all their friends and families, your voices have been heard inside of municipal government, and we are grateful for your bravery and determination in advocating in a sense of deep pain and loss. Passing this legislation was a difficult fight, and as the mayor said, there was a lot of misinformation that was being spread. This was never a war on a segment of this industry. I've taken Uber before, and I'm sure I will take it again. I've applauded the app-based service providers for bringing better service to underserved areas of the city, and we want to maintain those positives, and we will. But we also need to address equity and the very practical issue of congestion on our city streets. This package will not cure congestion completely, but it is a much needed start. It is just logical that if you stop adding 2,000 new cars a month to the street, it will have some effect on congestion. And it will go a long way to restoring fairness in this industry and helping the men and women standing behind us today. 90% of the drivers in New York City are immigrants who came to this country with dreams and aspirations for themselves and for their families. And again, as the mayor said, wages are so low that 40% of drivers in New York City qualified for Medicaid currently. 18% of them qualify for food stamps. There is something very wrong when that is the case. For-hire drivers should be able to support themselves and their family without working long, unhealthy hours and still struggling to put food on the table. They shouldn't have to work longer and longer with each passing month because thousands of new cars are flooding the streets without a common sense way to absorb them. These bills will begin to address this inequity, and we're doing it without cutting any existing service. I am really proud we were able to see them through. I just want to, finish with this. Sometimes we try to tackle complicated public policy matters that are in front of us with the best intentions and not exactly knowing every single issue when we get engaged and involved. But I want to just repeat again for all the New Yorkers who are out there and listening, everyone who has Uber or Lyft or Via or Juno on their smartphone. And I want you to know that sometimes we don't think about it, but it is important to recognize that it is not always just about convenience. It is also about fairness and equity and ensuring that everyone has a fighting chance to be a full citizen in New York City. I mean that for the drivers and all drivers, Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, yellow and green and livery and black car and limo drivers. I mean that for people who are in wheelchairs, like the amazing folks who are here today, my friend Edith Prentice, who's here with us today. And this package of bills incentivizes the use of more accessible cars being put on the road, which I'm really, really proud of. And I mean it for the families and children of the people who have been affected by this industry as well. Today is a good day. It is an important day for New York City, and it is the first step in us doing what is right, and it has taken us far too long to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Speaker.
Union power! Driver power! Union power! Driver power! Union power!
All right, you guys are doing good. Now, every great piece of legislation has a lead sponsor who shepherds it all the way, and he is here with us today. My pleasure to introduce Council Member Steve Levin.
Yes, Steve!
Thank you, Mayor.
Well done.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I just want to, I really want to acknowledge the people that have really been behind this legislation and have put so much heart into it. So I want to start with our mayor. Mayor de Blasio, for the last 3.5 years, has championed this legislation in a way that has been unwavering and has, called out the inequity in a very frank and candid way. And he has pulled no punches. And where he has seen inequity, where he has seen exploitation, he has acted. And so I'm just so proud to have been part of this with Mayor Bill de Blasio, who has just put his whole heart into this. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
To our amazing Commissioner, Mira Joshi, who has been, as Corey said, an honest broker in all of this. She's had to balance so many different concerns in a way that is data-driven, in a way that is circumspect, in a way that's conscientious and fair. And, throughout this entire process, she has demonstrated that leadership. And so, Mira, thank you so much for all of your amazing, amazing work on this. To the Taxi Worker Alliance and Beta Vita Psi,
Thank you! Thank you! Thank you! Thank you! Thank you!
yeah,
God bless you, Beta V!
Beta V walks a path of righteousness, and to see her demonstrate, true leadership, where it's based on doing what's right and doing what is in the best interest of the people that she's out here to represent, in a meaningful way, in a way that is kind, in a way that is righteous, has been really inspiring to see. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your tenaciousness, your tenacity in fighting every single day, and reminding us of our responsibility, which you have done so effectively. Hector Figueroa, 32.
BJ!
32.
BJ!
Hector. The addition to 32 BJ on this fight has been so instrumental, and Candace and Allison and David, making sure that the strategy is right and making sure that the legislation is fair. I can't thank you enough for bringing such great power and righteousness to this fight. So thank you, Hector, so much. I want to acknowledge my friend Idanis Rodriguez, the chair of our Transportation Committee. Idanis and I were doing this 3 years ago, and we weren't able to make it happen then, but he's been steadfast each step of the way. To our commissioner, the Mayor's Office of People with Disabilities, Victor Calisi, thank you for always making sure that the issue of disability rights is front and center as it is in this legislation. So thank you so much, Commissioner. And I have to give so much thanks to my great friend and our leader in the City Council, our Speaker Corey Johnson. Corey, you know, all along since he became Speaker, Corey has said, "Look, I'm doing this because I believe this is the right thing to do." We went forward on this not because it was politically easy. It was not. Not because it was convenient. It was not. Not because it was a convenient time to do it. Here we are in the middle of August. Right? He did this because it was the right thing to do. And he was following his sense of decency, his sense of righteousness, and his sense of responsibility. And so, Corey, thank you for taking on this fight and for taking it up in your whole heart and making sure that we saw this to completion. So, Corey, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Corey.
Also, I have to acknowledge Jason Goldman and Laura Popa on the Speaker's staff for the countless hours that they put into this, and the entire legislative staff. I just want to say really quickly here, for generations, driving a cab in New York City was a way to get into the middle class. If you just came here from another country, you could drive a cab, and you can hope that if you worked hard, and you could be assured that if you worked hard and you drove a lot of hours, that you'd be able to provide for your family. You might be able to buy a home. You'd be able to send your children to college. And it was always about forward looking. The sacrifices that you make for your future generations was worth it because that's part of the American dream. That's the compact that we have in our society. And over the last several years, what we've seen is the bottom fall out of that dream. The bottom fallout of that compact. You know, the data is important. The average driver wage who's working full time before deductions, before all the costs of driving the car, is about $50,000. The cost of the car every year is $20,000. Drivers are taking home $30,000 a year. That's before taxes. That's before taxes. So after taxes, we're talking about $20,000 or so a year. Now, if you look at when we do affordable housing in New York City, that's about 30% of AMI. We categorize that as extremely low income. Extremely low income. And I want to ask all of you, imagine trying to make it in New York City. Family of 4 on $20,000 a year after taxes. Just think about that. And that's what almost all of the drivers are facing today. And so that's why we had to act. That's why we had to do this now. And so again, I want to thank all of you for all of your steadfastness in making sure that this package of legislation went through. You know, it's our responsibility to act, and that's what we've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Now, we got some more speakers coming up. I just want to say to the speakers, all of the people about to speak, if you believe in worker rights, do not cause the workers to melt. Okay? It's really hot out, so let's see everyone kind of keep your remarks to the point a little. It's okay. We still love you. So, there's only one man here with the audacity to continue to wear his suit jacket, which I really admire. And I think that's a metaphor for Idanis Rodriguez's ability to stick with an issue. He has been fighting for drivers for a long time, and he fought 3 years ago, and here he is in victory today. Chair of Transportation Committee, Idanis Rodriguez.
Thank you. Sí se puede! Sí se puede! Sí
se puede.
Well,
Sí se puede.
I'm one of those 80% immigrants, recent immigrants, because the other 20% are the son and daughter or grandson and daughter of another immigrants, because this is a city of immigrants. I drove a Liberty taxi driver during the time that I was taking classes at City College. So I know our reality. And I'm here standing for all immigrants, because a city that has welcomed all of us from different places, it is our responsibility to make our city a place where the working class live with dignity. And as I did it, that driving a taxi, washing dishes, threw me to college, became a teacher, now a council member. Any driver who is behind a wheel, their son and daughter, they should be getting all the support to be also part of the middle class of this city. This is what this legislation is all about.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nosotros estamos aquí muy corto para proteger a los inmigrantes. Esta es una industria que el 80% de los taxistas, igual que yo, fuimos taxistas inmigrantes. Le damos la gracia al alcalde, al vocero Johnson, Levin, and everyone who are here, all my colleagues, to say, como decimos, sí se puede. Este es un comienzo de asegurarnos que los taxistas inmigrantes tengan todo el apoyo necesario para tener las regulaciones, para hacer el sueldo necesario para apoyar a su familia. Sí se puede.
Sí se puede. Sí se puede. Driver power. Union power. Driver power. Union power. Driver power. Union power.
It sounds good. Sounds good even every time. Every time. We're in her district, and she has been a loud, strong voice for drivers and a great advocate. Council member Carlina Rivera.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so proud to be here again. Thank you to the mayor and all of the advocates and Speaker Johnson for taking on this issue. This is not even the first time in the Speaker's tenure that we have taken on corporate interests. We know that there are big powers right in this fight who are looking to just focus on one thing, and that is their bottom line. These are real people behind me with real families and real livelihoods, and I am so proud to be part of a city council that is taking care of that. And so as a lifelong New Yorker, as someone who does use Uber and Lyft, who is proud to take a yellow taxi, I have to say that I live in Lower Manhattan and I am experiencing congestion and traffic, and we talk about air quality and quality of life, but we have to do what is best for the people of New York, and we have to do what is best for these drivers. And so when we look at this, we looked at it very holistically and comprehensively. We looked at outer boroughs that were being underserved. We looked at the central business district. We looked at minimum wage and people who were living in poverty. And I think the bills that we passed yesterday in the city council, I am so proud that the mayor is going to sign it as soon as next week. We really did the right thing. And so I want to say I was an early supporter to this package. I told my friend Steve Levin when he said, "Are you a supporter?" I said, not only am I a supporter, I'm third and fourth on all of the bills because I believe in this message and I believe in the people behind me. I'm proud to stand with the Taxi Workers Alliance, with the Advocates Commissioner. You have been incredible. And of course with 32BJ, welcome to Union Square, welcome to District 2. I'm very proud to be representing the district I've called home my entire life, and I'm proud to be standing with the New Yorkers that I have grown up with my entire life. Thank you so much, everyone.
Our next speaker is small in physical stature, but she is powerful and strong, and Lord knows she's borne the brunt of all those corporate interests. If there's ever been a good day for Meera Joshi, this is that day, and congratulations on a long journey to justice.
Yes!
Commissioner at TLC, Meera Joshi.
Thank you.
Thank you. This has been more than a marathon. It's been an ultra marathon, so I'll try to be brief. Yesterday was a great day for local government. Yesterday was a great day for good government. Yesterday was a great day for drivers and a great day for everyone who uses our city streets. What struck me the most as I was watching the roll call vote was how much the council members care, the empathy, and they represent all of our communities. It was evident that they care about drivers. They care about people who want outer borough service after years of not getting it.
They care about people that are refused because of their color, and they care about people who never get a ride because the car they're trying to get into can't accommodate their wheelchair. And they care about congestion and how it reduces our quality of life. The package of bills that was passed yesterday addresses all of these concerns in a way that makes sense. And that's a huge achievement in a world where legislation more often looks like sausage and is not reflective of our community values. I want to thank Speaker Johnson for his leadership and his amazing team for the time and energy that they spent learning about this complex industry to draft the best possible legislation. I want to thank my incredible boss, Mayor de Blasio, for his unwavering commitment to do the right thing for all New Yorkers. It is clearly his fundamental determination in the face of extreme odds that got us to this day. I want to thank the many drivers and many of the drivers and their family and friends for those that we have tragically lost that are advocating today. I want to thank the labor leaders for your active participation. Your voices were heard. And I am honored by the city's confidence in the ability of the TLC to resolve the complex challenges of underutilized vehicles and underpaid drivers. I know my amazing team is up to the task. Thank you.
Okay, two more. Absolutely. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Two more speakers we absolutely must hear from. But I want to give some honorable mention to acknowledge we have friends and supporters also at the state government level. I want to thank Assemblymember David Weprin for being with us as well. Well, I think these two folks go into the hero category in terms of this fight. And first, someone who's been just an extraordinarily powerful voice and really feels with passion what everyday workers go through and believe that they deserved better. The Executive Director of the Taxi Workers Alliance, Bhairavi Desai.
Driver power! Driver power! Driver power! Union power! Driver power! Union power! Driver power! Union power!
I can't even stop them because that's our logo. Wow, I can't believe we're here today. Victory Day! Yay! We work so hard. We work so hard for this struggle. We shed so many tears. We dropped so many roses. We remembered so many lost friends, and we took courage and inspiration from so many beautiful people. I can't tell you what an amazing feeling it is for us today as a movement, as a workforce, as an organization, as a people. I mean, yes, we fought for fairness and we fought for justice, but most of all, we just fought to be seen. We just wanted to be heard. We wanted our humanity to be recognized as equal to everybody else in this city of New York. And we wanted the humanity to be recognized as something greater than corporate greed and corporate interests. The tagline of yesterday was, "People power beat corporate lobbying."
Yes!
Yes. And you know what? That was absolutely impossible without the elected leadership that we have in the city of New York.
Yes! Yes!
Mayor de Blasio, you are a man of greater character than stature. To be not up here saying, "I told you so." You were with us 3 years ago when very few people were. Even though we didn't win on that day, you opened up the front so we could have that victory today.
Yes! Yes!
We'll always remember that. Yes. Speaker Johnson. Now, I have to tell you my Speaker Johnson moment. Before I got to hear from Speaker Johnson, he had already... Yes, we love you, Speaker Johnson. He had already called the family members. I was so deeply moved by that, you know? Gabriel, who is the driver that lost a parent in the 6 suicides, who had remained the most active, You know, Gabriel just couldn't believe that he got to talk to you. And he got to talk not only strategy and the issue, but he got to talk about his grief, you know? And yesterday, the thing that I heard, and when I heard this, the first person I wanted to call was Councilman Levin to deliver this news. Every family that I had really just the deepest honor of being able to call and share this news, every family said to me the same thing without realizing these were all their common words. Each of them said to me, my loved one can now have some peace. Wow. Those were Richard's first words to me, you know? I mean, we have fought so many campaigns and economic fights that are fundamentally about justice and democracy in the workplace and about, you know, numbers so people can survive. But at the end of the day, we have never worked on a campaign that has been more about humanism and more about the humanity of people. And we should not lose our people and let a silence fall upon that loss. And so I just want to say to you that we know that life will now start to get better. We know our new day is here. We know that our hope can now be tangible. But most of all, we know that our humanity was honored. And there is something so deeply priceless and empowering in that. And I hope each of you know that that's what you delivered to a workforce of 100,000 people.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chairwoman Joshi, we can't wait to work with you. Thank you for your advocacy. To our brothers and sisters, to my union president, Hector Figueroa, we love you so much. Thank you for building a new New York. To all the New Yorkers, lastly, I just want to say, Taxis for All campaign, who have stood with us this entire fight for over 10 years and through these 3 years, one of the last emails I received was from the last passenger of Kenny Chow, who said to us, he served me on that day, and we will make sure as New Yorkers that we continue to serve his memory. And you, City Council, you, Mayor de Blasio, that's exactly what you have helped us do today. Thank you so much.
Woman power! Woman power! Woman power! Human power! Woman power! Human power! Woman power!
All right. Our last speaker. Our last speaker is a powerhouse. And I want to say this is one of the deepest compliments I can give. He does not just believe in uplifting the members of his union. He believes in uplifting all working people. And that if you uplift a working person somewhere, someone else also benefits, because it's the forward march of fairness and decency for working people. That's what he's devoted his life to, and he's doing a hell of a good job at it. President of 32 BJ SEIU, Hector Figueroa.
32 BJ! 32 BJ! 32 BJ! 32 BJ! 32 BJ! 32 BJ!
I want to look tall today, so I'm gonna use it.
You look very tall.
So today is a new hot day.
A new hot
day.
day.
I'm going to keep my words brief. I want to really thank Mayor de Blasio, because there is no other city in this country that stands with working people like New York City.
Yes!
And it's fair to say, last summer we delivered for fast food workers in a breakthrough legislation, and this summer we deliver for taxi workers, and it's only gonna get better from here on. Thank you so much. And I want to thank our speaker, Cory Johnson, and all the members of the City Council and our Assembly member here, because elected officials like Cory, who understand the value of work, but more important, the dignity of workers, are really the ones who make these moments possible. So we want to thank you, Speaker. And I just followed, incoming here, a woman that I really think deserves our utmost admiration. Vera Desai with the Taxi Workers Alliance, our friendship and solidarity goes decades. And I have been side by side with her in moments in which we have celebrated, whether it's the fight for 15, the need to fight for immigrant workers, and today drivers. There is no more powerful voice than our system better be decided when it comes to fight for working people. I want to thank our commissioners present here today, and then I want just to leave you with this thought. And I'm going to say a few words in Spanish because I think it's important. But first and foremost, this is a bright day for the labor movement. There are those who think that in the new economy, where people's jobs are basically allocated through a platform, through technology, that workers no longer have rights, no longer have power. Today's legislation, what is about to become a model for the country, is telling us that we can still win in a gig economy, that workers are still workers, and when we join the union and we come together, we can still provide for ourselves and our families. There is hope in the new economy, and this is the face of hope in the new economy. Second, I want to reiterate to all our labor friends out there, and I thank Mayor de Blasio for his words, but we really mean this in 32 BJ. We really fight for good jobs and strong communities. Drivers are part of our community. Drivers require and need our support to make this legislation be the foundation for good jobs for all drivers in the city of New York. Let's use the power we have as a labor movement to lift all workers, to make sure that every ounce of political power, influence, attention that we have is used to the service of working people. That is what made this possible, and that is what is going to make it possible for the drivers, for building workers, for all workers to be able to live a better life in our society. If we come together, we join in union, and we make solidarity not a word, but a practice and something we live by. And then last in Spanish, es un día muy importante para los conductores en la ciudad de Nueva York. Gracias al alcalde de Blasio, a nuestro portavoz Cory Johnson, a todos los miembros del Consejo Municipal, nuestros comisionados y nuestra hermana en la lucha por los conductores de Nueva York, Berabi Desai, hemos podido con el Taxi Workers Alliance llegar a este momento. Pero para todos los conductores que hablan español, para todos los trabajadores de la ciudad de Nueva York que hablan este idioma, queremos decirle, esta victoria es suya. Sigamos luchando, sigamos organizando y en solidaridad vamos a mejorar nuestras vidas, mejorar la ciudad y ganar para la clase trabajadora. Muchas gracias.
All right, we are now turning to the news media to take questions about this legislation. We'll take questions about other topics after, but let's first see any questions about this legislation. Grace.
So there's been some talk from many of the speakers about congestion and the role that this bill will play in improving the congestion situation, or at least not making it get worse. For a lot of New Yorkers, they say congestion pricing is the best way to address congestion in the city, yet you have not been supportive of it. What do you say to them?
I would say, first of all, to recognize this legislation achieves so many things at once. It achieves fairness for working people. It's going to raise wages. It's going to improve the environment, and I want to thank the environmental groups who have been part of this fight as well. It's going to help respect the rights of folks with disabilities. I also believe it's one of the tools we will use to address congestion. There's going to have to be a lot of different pieces that come together. And for example, we have a very important effort right now to see if ending deliveries during rush hour will help reduce congestion. We have an important effort that we're going to be doing to do more enforcement in HOV lanes. There's a lot of pieces. But look, I said it before, I'll say it again. Show me a new congestion pricing proposal, a specific proposal, and I'm looking at it. I think it's really good that the Governor's Commission came up with the idea of getting away from the bridges, and that opens up new possibilities. But I also would say to you, there is not a formal congestion pricing proposal in Albany, and when there is one, I'm certainly going to look at it. Please.
Issue that you would take the lead on as the mayor of New York City, a bill that would directly...
Again, I am open to a solution, and I'm looking at all possible elements of that solution. All right, on this legislation, yes.
Council Speaker said that this wasn't a specific war against a segment of the industry, but in your comments, you did make it sound, fairly specifically targeted toward corporate greed. How big of an element did that play in this legislation?
Look, I'll speak for myself, and the Speaker will offer his view. I mean, my view is this was a legislation that achieved a lot of things at once. Most importantly, it was good policy because it addressed wages and the environment and congestion all at once. And I think it's very smart legislation. I think the backdrop is we had a number of corporations, particularly one very powerful corporation, trying to dictate to the people of this city. And the council showed that that's not going to happen. Other questions on this? Yes, sir.
Mayor, what do you think is different this time than when you proposed this legislation 3 years ago? And can you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing between the last time the legislation failed and now? Have you been doing behind-the-scenes work? What's been going on?
Look, I think 3 years ago we were right. And I appreciate what Bayravi said very much, and she was right, and a lot of people here were right. And we had to keep working for the day. I was wrong. No. All good, brother. We had to keep working for the day. And the idea was kept alive for sure. But we had to wait for the right moment where it could actually be achieved. So no one ever gave up. I won't go into a whole lot of detail. I'll say we all kept talking. We all kept the idea alive. We all kept waiting to see the moment where we could get it done. And I think people all over the city increasingly felt the impact of something that was broken. They saw, I heard from plenty of constituents, why are all these cars driving around empty? We didn't hear that as much 3 years ago. That's what we feared was coming. But in the last 3 years, people saw it. They felt it. So I think, the world changed and it became the right time to act. Yes.
Mayor, but is there anything you would say that the company, you talked about the corporate giant, and they had a lot of influence last time around, and that was a big part of why that effort failed. Do you see their effort against this time around as being any different? Do you think they were less aggressive?
I think, they were plenty aggressive. Again, Corey, jump in any time you want. You're eyewitness. I think I'll speak to it and then you should. They were very aggressive. And they had lots of resources and they were using them. Anytime people go up on TV with a big TV buy, that's plenty aggressive, among other things they tried to do. I think the most important point here is it was more and more obvious for the people of the city that something was wrong and had to be addressed. We had a council with strong leadership ready to act on this issue. Let's face it, the world's gotten wise to Uber in the meantime, too. Uber a few years ago tried to be, some white knight, and now people understand just how much damage Uber has done in so many ways. And that was important, and that you can't advertise your way out of the truth. And I think that was an important part of the equation. Sorry.
I would just say, Gloria, that, they were very engaged and very involved, and I think in a responsible way on our part, we gave them a full seat at the table so that they couldn't say that they didn't get to participate. And we listened to their concerns, we looked at the data with the TLC, and we tried to come up with a sound public policy solution. But I will tell you that the 11th hour offer of $100 million for us to change our legislation, I think showed you how much of a fight they were putting up to try to make that offer. At the end, it was an offer without any real specifics. And I am not saying that there was any coercion or potential quid pro quo at play, but they knew that the decision that we arrived at, we did because we were looking out for the best interests of the city and workers. And I just want to say this one other thing on these companies to go in line with what Hector said and with what the mayor said and with what Carlina said, which is Uber made $375 million in revenue last year in New York City. $375 million with $50 million of overhead. So they made $325 million in profit last year in New York City. Their drivers, the Independent Drivers Guild, came out in favor of this package of legislation because their drivers are struggling. And in this gig economy, Uber's drivers should be full-time employees. They deserve unemployment and disability and sick days and vacation days. They deserve that dignity that other workers have. And I hope that will be part of this conversation moving forward.
Speak up for president! Speak up for president! Speak up for president!
It started here, Corey.
How do you address the concerns then of the...
Hold on, let's let our friends in the media ask their question. Go ahead.
How do you address the concerns then of the New York Urban League, the National Action Network, the 3 Democrats voted against the bill yesterday, of racial profiling or outer boroughs' unreachability with this bill? How do you address the concerns there?
Okay, I'm gonna speak as an outer borough person. You've seen a flood of these for-hire vehicles, on top of the other forms of transportation, like car services that have been there for a long time. There are options. The problem is, with a flood of vehicles, what's ended up happening is a lot of empty vehicles that aren't transporting anyone and aren't making any drivers any money and are just clogging the streets. So we know this for a fact. And that's true in Manhattan, that's true in the outer boroughs. There's tons of congestion problems in the outer boroughs. Ask anyone from outer borough neighborhoods, they will tell you. So I don't buy the argument from the companies because I know there's so much excess capacity out there, and what it's going to mean is those drivers will now have fares and will actually rationalize the situation. On the question of discrimination, we will not tolerate it. I want to be very blunt and clear. I know Corey won't tolerate it, the council won't tolerate it, I know Mira won't tolerate it. By the way, I checked with her again today. Of the cases brought of discrimination against a rider, failure to pick up a rider, 50% of those cases have been substantiated, and there's been a penalty to a driver who did that. The first penalty is a substantial financial fine. The second penalty is a suspension of the driver license. The third penalty is revocation of the driver license. So there's real teeth in the current rules, and there's real follow-through. If 50% of cases, people are being found responsible. But we're going to be doing a lot more. We have a new office that the council really helped us to innovate, of inclusion. We're going to do a lot more outreach. We're going to train drivers to make sure they're sensitive and understand the ramifications. But it's as simple as this. We will not tolerate discrimination, and anybody, New Yorker or visitor, who suffers discrimination from any driver needs to report it immediately. Please.
We're able to move on to unrelated.
On this topic? We'll come to you afterwards. Yes?
Is the city's leadership open to more regulation?
Is what now?
City's leadership, you, the speaker, etc., open to more regulation once the study is over?
By definition. I mean, I'll start and feel free to jump in. This legislation very smartly says we're putting this cap in place, we're going to have a formal study for a year, and then the TLC is going to look at what we have to do next. And that'll be governed by the facts. So by definition, we're open to more regulation if that's what the facts demand.
Yeah, there was a package of bills that was introduced yesterday, which I think is 2.0 of what we need to do moving forward. One of the bills I think very, very important. It's a bill that would create a health care fund for taxi drivers in New York City so they could have health insurance. The TLC previously tried to do this by rule, but the court ruled that it needed to be done by legislation in the council, and I look forward to moving that legislation forward to give taxi drivers health insurance in New York City through a fund. That's number one. Number two is the mayor and I have talked about this, and some of the members have bills in this. We have to go after, as much as we can, potentially with the Department of Consumer Affairs, these predatory leasing companies that have been preying upon drivers. That's number two. And number three, what you're going to see, I think, with the quarterly data reports that the TLC is going to receive moving forward, is we're going to have to look at real utilization standards that are going to be put in place. The industry's changing quite a bit, so I don't know what the right number of cars is that should be in the road. Is it 104,000? Is it 110,000? Is it 80,000? There'll be natural attrition. What we want to do is we want to maximize cars being occupied occupied, and doing that through rule that the TLC will do based off of data and working with the for-hire vehicle companies and the taxi companies. I think there were 5 or 6 bills that were introduced at the council yesterday, and I think all those bills will have a hearing this fall. I can't tell you I'm passing them. We will have a hearing this fall, and then we'll go through the legislative process and working with the TLC. Again, all the stakeholders involved, so it's a fair and inclusive process.
One quick point to make visual what Corey was saying about how you'd like to see vehicles utilized. Remember that point I raised earlier. Over 40% of these for-hire vehicles now driving around empty at any given moment. That's madness. Classic image of a New York City taxi. The taxi pulls up to let someone off and someone new gets in right then. I mean, that's the perfect world, right? Yeah. That's not always the case, but that's the perfect world. So we want to see these vehicles, whatever that number is, used all the time. That's good for the drivers, that's good for the environment, that's good for reducing congestion. The last thing we want to see is a bunch of empty vehicles driving around. Okay, on this topic, yes, sir.
Just practically speaking, how are you going to carry out the minimum wage part of this bill? Some drivers are part-time, a lot of them are driving in oversaturated areas, which is the problem you're trying to solve.
So, Mira, you want to speak to how you will build those minimum standards?
Sure. So drivers don't work by the hour, so there is no such thing really as a minimum wage. But we did put together a proposal that was reviewed by 2 economists, one from Berkeley and one from the New School, and that proposal really takes a look at what do you get paid per minute and what do you get paid per mile. And it puts a price on the minute and the mile. And that price builds in the fact that you're not working that whole hour. So you need to be paid extra to account for your downtime. And on top of that, that whole minute mile formula is going to go up or down depending on how well a company can keep a driver occupied. If they cannot keep a driver occupied for the hour, then they're going to pay more per trip, and if they can keep a driver occupied, they're going to pay a little less, but the driver will end up making more because they'll be busier. So although we've used the word minimum wage because it's an easy term to use when we talk about pay, it's not actually accurate to how you regulate in this space.
Thank you. Okay, last call on this topic. Yes, sir.
Can Ms. Joshi talk about...
Say it again.
Can you talk about the importance of deadhead pay and what that means and whether you're willing to expand?
You want to try and impress us with a shop?
Deadhead, nice.
What is it?
Deadhead is the empty time when you get the call until you get to your passenger. We consider the deadhead time as downtime. That's the same as when you're cruising. You're not getting paid, you don't have a passenger, and all of that downtime has to be factored in because that's still work time. The app is on and you've got to be attentive and you've got to be ready, willing, and able to pick up a customer. So that deadhead and downtime cruising is all factored in, and it goes into the minute and the mile calculation.
Leave the city if you're a yellow cabbie, you're given money to drive back to the city. That's not the way we're doing. Some of the drivers I spoke to yesterday want to expand that to. Are you willing to do that?
If you pick up a trip under our accessible dispatch program, yes, we through a fund will pay the deadhead portion of the trip. Taxis generally work by hail, so deadhead is more of a foreign experience for them. But in a proposal that we have on wages, the drivers of accessible vehicles would get paid more to account for the fact that those accessible vehicles cost more to maintain.
On this topic? Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify, did the TLC actually require the City Council to pass legislation that allow you to set that minimum rate, or were you able to do that regardless?
We can do it through rulemaking. It is a much stronger statement of our entire city sentiment on how we think people and workers should be treated, that as a city, as an entire city, City Hall, the TLC, and City Council together stand strong on this issue.
Okay, going through other topics. Yes, sir.
Sorry, just one more question about this topic. Then
you may.
Okay, thank you. And back to the question I asked before. Then how do you respond to calls I've been hearing about, from the Republican nominee for New York Attorney General, however slim the chances may be, or civil rights groups saying they would press a civil rights suit against the city against this law? How do you respond to that?
I don't even understand that concept. We are going to, if you're talking about the question of fighting discrimination, again, we have very strong standards. I would say, please, everyone, report on this if you're interested in the topic. Financial penalty leading to license suspension, leading to license revoking in 3 steps. That's pretty tough stuff. And a 50% rate of these complaints being found substantiated and penalties being applied. That's strong regulation. We're going to strengthen it further and do a lot more outreach and a lot more education. I think it's quite clear we're fighting discrimination with a lot of strong tools. So anyone who wants to meet with the TLC about other things we can do, we're game because we want to fight discrimination in every way we can.
On to the off topic now. Can you respond to the new numbers out of Puerto Rico of the death count from Hurricane Maria?
I gotta be honest with you because I was working on a number of matters before I came over here. Tell me what the latest is because I have not heard it.
Over 1,400.
It's horrible, it's painful, and it is, you know, this is the place we're closest to in the world, right, as New Yorkers. This is the ultimate 6th borough, and you got 800,000 New Yorkers for whom Puerto Rico is their ancestral homeland. So we're all suffering when we hear that truth. And made worse by the fact that I think a lot of us don't feel like the federal government told us the truth about what was happening, and they certainly haven't taken responsibility for fixing what happened. Okay.
You like that this legislation?
A little louder?
Is there an example in other cities, in other countries like Spain or Argentina? And what advice would you give?
We're talking about the for-hire vehicles again? Look, I think what is happening now as we confront multinational corporations is that cities around the world are banding together and supporting each other and learning from each other. We've seen some extraordinary efforts by cities saying no to companies that tried to dictate to them. I hope today's progress will be felt around the world, and it will remind cities to take power and not allow multinational corporations to do things that hurt their people. Yeah.
Your administration is proposing, as one of several options, building more luxury or market rate housing than originally planned on properties adjacent to some NYCHA developments as part of sort of the Next Gen program. Have you changed your thinking on what the mix of affordable and market rate housing should be on NYCHA property?
So there's 2 different questions in my opinion. The first is this particular site, which is the only place where we're having this discussion. We wanted to offer the idea to local leaders because we saw the differential in terms of the amount of money it would provide to NYCHA. NYCHA, we now know, and it's tragic, that because of decades of disinvestment, the needs in NYCHA now exceed $30 billion. We have very little new federal money coming. We have still not seen any new state money in years for all intents and purposes. We've got to get money for public housing. And so we're going to, in this case, on the west side, look at this option to see if it's going to bring us a lot more money for public housing. We need to consider it, but it will, of course, go through a ULURP process, and that will be the ultimate decision. We have not decided which model to go with. We're going to talk to local leaders and decide. The second point is where we go in the future with NYCHA. We have not decided that yet either, except to say we know one thing for sure. We have to find models that will bring in resources. People are very frustrated for good reason that public housing is in such tough shape in this city. We can't just be frustrated. We have to find solutions, which means finding literally billions of dollars more to address what people are going through. That's something we're going to come forward in the coming months with new solutions for.
I mean, you know, this was something that's sort of very similar to what was proposed by Mayor Bloomberg. You had and lots of people had strong opinions about that and building market rate housing and green space around parking lots on public housing. I guess how are you going to balance, you know, I understand the rising capital need. For you personally, how are you balancing all of the issues at play here? You know, it strikes some people as unfair to build luxury housing next to a house.
So the first point is, again, in the name of accuracy, we do not have a decision on what the bigger policy is going forward. And we don't even have a decision about this site. It's a new, I mean, just for clarity, it's a new idea that's being ventured. The original idea is on the table as well. The Bloomberg administration now seems like a long time ago. But I remember vividly part of why I was uncomfortable, and I think a lot of public housing residents were uncomfortable, because there was not a clear policy to stop privatization. So the profound difference from day one, as we've talked about any potential development on NYCHA land, is it comes with a very clear strategy to protect the public ownership of that land and to protect the long-term affordable housing that is there. And also to put legal guarantees in place, which unfortunately in the previous administration there were too many times when things related to affordable housing, promises were made and they were not kept. So I think it's a very different reality. But I can only say to you, one way or another, we have to find billions upon billions of dollars to fix public housing in this city. Marsha?
Sir, I have 3 very short questions.
Okay.
First of all, there was a fight that broke out in a nail salon in Brooklyn last week. Now black leaders are demanding that shop not be allowed to open again. Your feelings about that?
I think a better solution is for the owners of that shop to apologize, to retrain their staff, and to make sure it never happens again. I think we need to move forward.
ACS worker turned out to have a record of having been a convicted murderer, served 28 years in jail, hired to deal with children. Your feelings about it, and also do you think what should be done to find out if there are other people with records who have been hired by ACS?
So my feeling is, as a parent, it absolutely disgusts me. It's unacceptable, and it never should have happened. That individual will not be working for ACS in the future and will go nowhere near children. It should not have happened, and I believe, because I've asked this question in real detail, that it could not happen anymore. There's a whole new series of employment background checks now that would have stopped that had they been in place. I believe he applied in 2013, got hired in 2014. Those rules were not in place then. They are in place now. Someone like that could not be hired. We are looking, and so far, thank God, we have not found any other case like this, but we are absolutely looking at all hires in the last few years to make sure there's no one else who possibly should not be in that kind of role. Hold on. Go ahead.
Cynthia Nixon has said that the public service employees should be allowed to strike, that the Taylor law should be changed. How do you feel about
I have a lot of respect for Cynthia, but I disagree with her on this. I acknowledge and appreciate that she said there should be an exemption for first responders, but I don't agree with changing the Taylor law. I think the Taylor law serves an important public purpose. And at the same time, there are lots of ways for workers' rights to be acknowledged and their voices to be heard. I think we have the right law now.
Yeah. You say to the Inwood residents who were furious and critical of the zoning plan passing yesterday. I mean, there were
some residents were against, some residents were for. Continue.
You saw what happened in the chambers yesterday. They were critical. I mean, what do you say?
Again, my friend, I just want to make a point. I was a council member. There's 160,000 people in that council district. Now, unless you've talked to all of them, what I would advise is there are some strong-willed activists who are against it. There are a lot of community leaders and everyday people who are for it. I respect all voices. But I can tell you that the number of people who show up at a hearing is a very, very small number compared to the residents of the community. And the real question is what's best to help the residents of the community, and what does their representative believe is in their interests? Ydanis Rodriguez is someone who has served that community as an activist and elected official for decades. I think he really has his finger on the pulse. And he demanded a lot of affordable housing, a lot of investment in schools and parks, and that's what people in the community wanted. And I think it was a fair outcome.
Just to follow up on Inwood, Francisco Moya, the councilman who's the chair of the subcommittee on zoning and land use, said last week that he would no longer negotiate with your office over upcoming neighborhood rezoning because he doesn't feel the process is fair. He had issues with some of the contractors who were selected. Even some labor unions have come out. I mean, what do you say to that? I know you said Ivan hasn't spoken to everyone in Inwood. You probably haven't spoken to everyone in Inwood either, and there's clearly some issues with these rezonings. What's your response?
Respect Councilmember Moya. Disagree with him. And it's very clear from the City Council as a whole that this process has been fair. The fact is the council has decided, for the leadership, the member representing the community, and the council majority in favor of rezoning in East New York, East Harlem, Far Rockaway, Jerome Avenue in the Bronx, and now Inwood. That's democracy. So that process is going to continue.
Mr. Mayor, did you get clearance from the Conflict of Interest Board to fundraise on behalf of the Fairness PAC? And if so, are you willing to share?
Again, the Fairness PAC is governed by electoral law. It is a campaign committee. It's governed by state and federal law. That's where the guidance is. We seek guidance on all sorts of specific situations from them, and we always will. But again, the law is abundantly clear. Conflict of Interest Board plays one role, but in terms of how you create political committees, for example, if you create a city political committee, it's a campaign finance board. Federal is the Federal Election Commission, state the State Board of Elections. The guidance is very clear.
As the days go on, you seem to endorse anti-IDC or former IDC members. You're endorsing their opponents. I believe.
I endorsed one, but stay tuned. But yes.
Former secretary.
Right.
Former secretary, press secretary.
Well, again, we've done one. Zell Normiri. I don't know what you're assuming. We've done one so far.
Your opinion of the former IDC leader. So, do you have any plans to endorse the former IDC leader's opponent?
I'll say what I've said to a lot of your colleagues before. Every campaign, every race is going to be looked at individually. Everything's case by case. I have made one endorsement for Zell Normiri in central Brooklyn, who I hope will be elected the next state senator from that community, and his district reaches into some of the areas I used to represent as well. We are going to look at each specific set of candidates and come up with specific ideas about each, but that's going to be case by case. We'll announce them as they're decided. Media question, last one. Is a media question? Your media? Brother? Okay.
Mayor, my question has to do with noise pollution.
Yes, sir.
And specifically, the neighborhood over on East 26th Street and 2nd Avenue has had a great influx of ambulances and helicopters, and the residents, we're talking like every 5 minutes, every important.
Right.
But the noise.
So you want to know what we're going to do about it? Yeah. I think noise is a serious, serious problem in the issue in some way in this city. In some ways, it's gotten worse. Our Deputy Mayor for Operations, Laura Anglin, is putting together a new plan to address a variety of elements of noise pollution, and it needs a little more work, but we'll have something to say on that soon. Thank you, everyone.
I want a picture with you, Mayor.